Why is President Donald Trump making a point in his speech about Parasite, a film directed by joon-ho? Why is he contrasting it with 1939 classic Gone with the Wind, directed by Victor Fleming? Why is he upset that Parasite won Best Picture at the Academy Awards? And why does the crowd react exactly as he wanted them to, despite the high probability that most of the people in the audience have never seen it? Trump is employing dog whistles, messages that appear to mean one thing to the general population, while simultaneously containing an additional, different, or more specific resonance for a targeted subgroup. A dog whistle allows plausible deniability for the speaker when confronted about the true meaning of the statement. It's apropos that Trump would reference Gone with the Wind while using a dog whistle because slavery, segregation, and the American Civil War itself is something romanticized and whitewashed with political dog whistles, most notably the term states' rights. It sounds benign, but in the context of a discussion about the history of the United States, it is obviously about something else. It can be used to send a message to supporters of segregation and institutionalized racial bigotry and rile up the electorate. In 1981, former Republican Party strategist Lee Atwater discussed Richard Nixon's Southern strategy.
You start out in 1954 by saying by 1968 you can't say that hurts your backfire, so you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now, you're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than.
Another common political dog whistle is law and order, which sounds benign until you remember that racial minorities are subject to significantly more policing than whites. White voters are at least somewhat aware of this, although they are more likely to make excuses for it than to sympathize with those who are oppressed by the police.
95% of your murderers, and murder victims fit one MO. You can just take the description, Xerox it, and pass it out to all the cops. They are male, minorities, 15 to 25. That's true in New York, it's true in virtually every city. And that's where the real crime is. You've got to get the guns out of the hands of the people that get killed. So you want to spend the money, put a lot of cops in the street, put those cops where the crime is, which means in minority neighborhoods. So it's one of the unintended consequences is people say, oh my God, you are arresting kids for marijuana that are all minorities. Yes, that's true. Why? Because we put all the cops in the minority neighborhoods. Yes, that's true. Why do we do it? Because that's where all the crime is. And the way you get the guns out of the kids' hands is to throw them up against the wall and frisk them. And then they say, oh, I don't want that, I don't want to get caught, so they don't bring the gun. They still have a gun, but they leave it at home.
To sum up, what many politicians say in private is overt bigotry and white supremacy. In public, they use dog whistles, but they both communicate the exact same thing. When Donald Trump says, "Make America Great Again," he is telling a predominantly white audience about a time either in their lives or the lives of their fathers when they allegedly had it better than they have it now. He is romanticizing the past, an idyllic 1950s white utopia that never really existed outside Leave It to Beaver. In his campaign in 2015 and 2016, he frequently associated making America great again with violence, particularly violence against protesters.
You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. Knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously.
Gonzaga University professor Jeffrey Omari once said, "From my perspective as a black man living in an increasingly polarized political climate that is America, MAGA is an undeniable symbol of white supremacy and hatred toward certain non-white groups. For its supporters, MAGA indexes an effort to return to a time in American history when this country was great for some, particularly propertied white men, but brutally exclusionary for others, most notably women and people of color. So, what is Donald Trump telling the audience by saying he has a problem with Parasite winning Best Picture? Is his issue with the content of the film? The cinematography? The acting? Perhaps the message of the film? After all, Parasite is an unambiguously anti-capitalist film, and Trump is a rich capitalist. The film is about a poor family in South Korea desperate to improve their station in life. Through a series of ever-increasing lies, they are able to, one by one, gain employment as housekeepers and other staff for a rich family. The rich family lives high up in the hills, and the poor family literally lives underground. Income inequality is an inevitable consequence of capitalism, as this economic system relies on a hierarchy to function through wage labor. The flooding and water splashing scenes evoke the director's recurring message across his recent filmography about how the rich are insulated from the effects of climate change far more than the poor. The rich family in Parasite is barely inconvenienced by the storm, whereas the poor family is devastated by it. Donald Trump infamously favors the rich over the poor in his tax plans, and his climate denial is well documented. One might think his issues with the film are related to the content, but he never says anything about that. That's because, in all likelihood, he has never seen Parasite. There are 1,000 things worse about Donald Trump than his movie-watching habits, but said habits do tell us something about him. In 1997, journalist Mark Singer shared a plane with Trump and wrote about his experience in The New Yorker. We hadn't been airborne long when Trump decided to watch a movie. He'd brought along Michael, a recent release, but 20 minutes after popping it into the VCR, he got bored and switched to an old favorite, a Jean-Claude Van Damme slugfest called Bloodsport. By assigning to his son the task of fast-forwarding through all the plot exposition, Trump's goal being to get this 2-hour movie down to 45 minutes, he eliminated any lulls between the nose-hammering, kidney-tenderizing, and shin-whacking. The idea that Donald Trump sat down and watched a 2-hour and 12-minute South Korean film with subtitles is a little hard to swallow. Trump implied in the speech that he had not actually seen it. Considering the fact that the film wasn't exactly a blockbuster in the United States, most of the crowd probably hasn't seen it either, because most of the country has not. So, what was his problem with it, and what was he communicating? He told the audience that his sole issue with the film is that he thought it was only able to be nominated for Best Foreign Language Film, and not Best Picture. We should not be so naive as to think Trump's concern is with Academy rules, with which he is obviously not familiar. That leaves us with the dog whistle and what Trump is trying to elicit in his audience. Parasite is being used as a pawn in a pre-existing culture war. In about a minute, Trump tells his predominantly white, socially conservative audience what he wants to say and what they want to hear, all while not explicitly saying it. By acting incredulous that a foreign film won Best Picture, his dog whistle is clearly about his America First culture war. This is nothing new. America First as a slogan and subsequent policy was popularized in 1918, in the interwar period. It's a dog whistle itself, claiming only to put the interests of the United States of America before the interests of other nations, which is standard operating procedure for every country on Earth. But the context in which it is used evokes nationalism, xenophobia, isolationism. It has a historical association with nativism and antisemitism. Trump once claimed, "America First will be the major and overriding theme of his administration." Trump knows what he's saying when he says that Parasite should not be allowed to be nominated for Best Picture on the basis of it being a foreign film. He knows what he's saying when he says the nation should bring back Gone with the Wind. Trump choosing Gone with the Wind as his contrasting example was not random. He knows what "let's bring back Gone with the Wind" means to conservative Americans. Gone with the Wind itself is a symbol as much as any Confederate monument. The crowd mostly hasn't seen it, but when Trump even mentioned Parasite, they knew what he was really saying. Trump is telling the audience that Parasite being chosen as Best Picture is an example of the United States' declining influence, and how only he can see this, and only he can fix it. Trump played up talking points made famous by authoritarian figures in the past. The idea of a people who were once great, but were betrayed or humiliated by some nebulous other. To turn back the clock to an earlier time. To return to an earlier status quo. A reactionary movement built on a nostalgia for a past that does not actually exist. Trump is able to touch upon another right-wing talking point without actually saying it. The old "speak the language" declaration. Conservative politicians like Trump use words like assimilation in speeches.
We have a country where to assimilate, you have to speak English. And I think that where he was and the way it came out didn't sound right to me. We have to have assimilation. To have a country, we have to have assimilation. I'm not the first one to say this, Dana. We've had many people over the years, for many, many years, saying the same thing. This is a country where we speak English, not Spanish.
Conservative politicians couch this in pragmatism and make it sound benign. Speaking the most common language of the nation would be beneficial, after all, but that's not what's really being communicated. If it were, it would be said sympathetically. Instead, it's usually shouted by white Americans, often unprompted if they hear someone speaking any other language but English in public.
Your staff is speaking Spanish to customers when they should be speaking every person I listen to. He's spoken, she's speaking it, is America.
Explain what I did to you one more time.
Talking that stupid Spanish around here when everybody else is English speaking American.
This is our first time, so you need to speak English.
I'm sorry about you, man.
Well, I'm sorry about you too.
Why?
Get the out of my country.
When Trump mocks Parasite for winning Best Picture, he's not critiquing a film. This is not simply another instance of Trump's infamously bad hot takes on movies and movie stars. He's furthering his socially conservative, white supremacist, xenophobic agenda to the crowd in language that can be plausibly denied as to its true purpose. This allows Donald Trump to have a lifetime's worth of documented bigotry, while being able to say things like this and have half the United States of America willing to believe him, or willing to pretend to believe him. In many ways, Donald Trump is a fool, but when he speaks like this, when he reaches into the hearts of white Americans and stokes their fears, he knows exactly what he's doing.
The word rosebud, for whatever reason, has captivated moviegoers and movie watchers for so many years, and to this day is perhaps the single word. And perhaps if they came up with another word that meant the same thing, it wouldn't have worked. But rosebud works.